Good afternoon, everyone. This is Chitranjan Agarwal, class of 1983 from St. John's, and I'm welcoming Manish Tewari, class of 1980, to this discussion, and Kavita Das, ma'am, who's our former principal. Almosto Kapoor, the current president of SJOBA, is here as well. And we are here to discuss whether how St. John's has, imbibed qualities and ethics in old boys and how it can lead to good governance. So, Kavita ma'am is, of course, well known to all of us. She's a former principal, as is Manish. Almosto, of course, is the man about town these days, trying to organize things for SJOBA. That said and done, my first question, Kavita ma'am, is to you. Could you reiterate your connection to the school?
Thank you so much, Siddharth. And Chitranjan, Mr. Manish, Almosto, thank you so much for inviting me on this program. And my connection has been a little up and down. I joined as a temporary teacher, sort of, part-time, then went to do full-time, then had my kids and went part-time. And then when I finally became full-time, they made me principal. So I was principal for about 16 years.
Right. And Manish, of course, you were from St. John's. You studied from class 1 to class 10 in St. John's, I believe, right?
Well, it was actually class 1 to class 8 because the academic calendar used to be from January to December.
Right.
And since I used to swim for the state, my swimming would end by November. That was too close to the exams, and unfortunately, the year I changed to Government Model High School Sector 16, St. John's changed its academic calendar from March to March.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, it was a strange coincidence, but the formative years which shaped my personality, of course, spent in St. John's from 1971 to 1979.
Right. Yeah. 79 was the year we went to a April to March calendar in 80, I think. Yeah. So we had a class of 78 and then we have a class of 80. So we don't have a class of 79 because of that. Okay, Almosto, quickly, your association with school and how long were you there for?
Yeah, so sir, I'm class of 2001 and I'm a second generation Johnian. My dad was also from one of the earlier batches.
And a founder of SJOBA. Your father was a founder of SJOBA, yes.
Yeah, so founder of SJOBA as well. So yeah, it's been about 20 odd years since I passed out from school. Incidentally, Kavita ma'am was my class teacher in class 10 and I passed out. Oh. Yeah, so that's a real honor.
For life. Scarred for life. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, fond memories of school and honor of being the president of SJOBA this year and being a part of this esteemed panel. So remember seeing Manish sir, the late 2008, 2009 when he was a part, when he was a spokesperson for Congress on Times Now. I remember that, and I think I wouldn't have ever thought in my wildest dreams that I would be sharing a platform with him and being a part of such a conversation. So yeah, a great honor and an opportunity to be a part of this session today.
Super. Kavita ma'am, so, in your years with St. John's, several years, what are the qualities that, the school imbibes in Johnians that help them, be better and more ethical people, and especially in terms of governance?
I think there are three things basically that shape our Johnians. The first one would be their motto, which is for God and country. It's pro Dio et patria, as you all know, you're all Johnians. And that spirituality, which comes with Dio, for God, I think gives our children a moral compass, a direction, as well as the strength and the knowledge which comes from spirituality to find their direction and to overcome challenges. And then, of course, the other part of the school motto is for country, which speaks of making good citizens. So St. John's has never been primarily or only about academics. Academics is a given, of course, but it is about shaping them into wonderful human beings. So the second aspect I would say would be the very democratic approach we have in our school. The kids have a voice, as does the cabinet. So there is a lot of collective responsibility in the school taken up by the children themselves. The council is not, the student council is not just, a showpiece. They are the ones handling discipline at its root. So the result is that the kids know that they can speak and they can rectify situations. My office was very much what I call a swinging door when I had the kids walking in with all their issues. But the catch was that we have what's called constructive criticism. You can't walk in that door unless you have a viable alternative to give us for the problem with. So that taught them a lot about, solution finding. And finally, I would say it's the 4 core touchstones of our school, which are basically spirituality, compassion, inclusion, and justice and advocacy. So all these contribute to making young men who are very alert and in tune with the world around them, because they're dealing a lot with society, working with the marginalized. And when we talk inclusion, we are talking about taking people along. It's not that you voice a difference and so, you're an enemy. No, the whole idea is that you have to bring everyone along and you have to include them in what you're doing. And of course, justice and advocacy means you have a voice to do it. You have a way of doing it, as I said. It's very democratic. So I think all this shapes our children very well and produces very fine young men who are, not only achievers, but achievers in the right sense. They have a moral direction. They have an inner strength and a core belief in themselves as well as in their maker. And this leads to very fine human beings, whom I'm very proud of.
Right, thank you. Mr. Tiwari, was your experience similar? I remember in our days, we did not have the revolving door policy. It was, if you were called to the principal's office or you had to go there, it was an experience you would not want to go through again. But in terms of the moral compass and everything, we would tend to agree with what ma'am has said, right? And would you like to add your bit to that?
But I think what is most important is that the school instilled very ethical values in its students, values that became a moral compass which helped you to distinguish between the right and the wrong. And it, I think, has held people in very good stead later on when they went about their careers and professions. But most importantly, it instilled in your personality. The fact that you could come to school with unprotected clothes. You had to be presentable. You had to your hair needed to be trimmed. Your nails needed to be cut, and it sort of also instilled that sense of personal hygiene, which is extremely important in any civic society. More importantly, it also helped you imbibe values of compassion, values of tolerance, and understanding and empathy towards your fellow schoolmates. So in a sense, the experience made you a rounded personality. And of course, during our times, I remember discipline was very strict. And of course, going to the principal's office was to the most horrible nightmare that you could possibly imagine. But I'm glad that things evolved over a period of time. But even then, that the very strict sense of discipline, the morning inspections where everybody would line up in the corridors and had to be a part of that inspection, eventually may have been a little intimidating at that point in time, especially when you were younger. But when you look back on in retrospect, it really sort of helped you to discipline yourself, which then stands you in stead the rest of your life.
Absolutely. Mr. Tewari. Thank you for reminding of the inspection, how dreaded that whole exercise was every morning at 8 o'clock. Almosto, I'm sure you...
On a lighter note, I do remember a lot of the guy who used to iron clothes in front of Guru Gobind Singh College, I guess used to make a lot of money in the morning.
Yes.
That's, I think, to get their trousers ironed in various stages of undress. Pardon Mrs. Das is here for me saying so. Yeah, I guess that was the extent of discipline that people knew that they couldn't go to school. If their trousers weren't ironed, their shoes weren't shined, and their nails were not cut, their hair was not in a proper manner. And the parents, the package, in addition to what the school did internally to you, helped you bring out the best in you, the balance between sports and academics. I guess it has shaped generations and generations of good thought leaders who have served society in an extremely diligent and in a very efficacious manner.
Absolutely. Almosto, your experience was similar in terms of the learnings and what you imbibed from the school?
Yes, sir. I would say it was pretty similar. And Kavita ma'am and Manish sir have pretty much summed it up all. Just to maybe add on a bit to it, I would say the value system which I as a student got out of St. John's is really something which has which I would say which has been beneficial for me in my personal and professional life both. I think the emphasis on qualities such as equality, honesty, discipline, that is really something which is very important whenever you're embarking, especially on your professional life, and when especially you're in leadership positions. Like in my case, I have my own business, and wherein I have to manage employees, manage their expectations, at the same time be fair, being empathetic towards everyone. So I think all of these are qualities which you pick up during your foundational days, especially when you're at school. And that is where St. John's has played a very important part. And I think that also kind of shows in our alumni that there is a lot of respect for our seniors, and there is this interaction between age groups or an age range, say spanning about 50 years. But there is still that element of respect which shows that even if you're meeting somebody who is just say 1 year senior to you and is pretty much your peer, but you will still address that person as sir and not call that person by their name. So I think all of this comes from those days at St. John's, and the teachers and others we were lucky to have at that point of time.
So, Mr. Tewari, the next question I'll pose to you first is that, you spent a lifetime in politics, and how did St. John's contribute to that? You've already told us how you prepared for it, but going forward in politics, I'm not sure whether you were preparing while in St. John's or politics, but all these values were coming in. So in politics, how have these helped you in your career?
Well, politics was by accident as a consequence of an incident. But as I was trying to submit earlier, what is important in politics is, first of all, a sense of personal discipline, a sense of integrity, a certain conscientiousness, and of course, time management. Schedules in politics are very brutal. When you start at 5 in the morning, you end at 1 o'clock at night. So therefore, you need to manage your time extremely effectively. So St. John's taught you that you could possibly do a lot of things simultaneously and concurrently if your time management was good. Number two, it, as I mentioned earlier, helped you distinguish between what is right and wrong. And so therefore, there is an inner moral compass which guides you, especially when you are in public life, holding public office, that you are in that position whereby your basic objective must be to do as much of public good as possible, contribute as much to public welfare as possible. So And that comes from deeply instilled conviction, which you unconsciously imbibe when you are in your formative years, and in this case, St. John's, that yes, there is a higher calling, there is also a higher purpose for which you need to strive, you need to live. And everything is not all about yourself. It is also about, if you take from society, you must give to society.
Right, Kavita ma'am. So, Mr. Tewari has talked about strong foundations. Could you add to that as to how St. John's helps build that?
There is, as Mr. Tewari said, there's a lot of self-discipline involved in our school. It is a school that believes that children have to understand that they are very special, they are very unique. There's no one like them in the world. So therefore, they have something, God has a purpose for them. They have a purpose in life of being on this earth. That sense of, that I'm not here for no reason. I have a reason for my existence, gives our children a lot of direction, a lot of conviction, as Mr. Tewari said, a lot of belief in themselves, but also a very strong sense of responsibility to society. Now, in our school, every class is engaged in some social service activity, community service. So whether it's working with, the visually challenged, the mentally challenged, thalassaemic kids, the old lepers, the transgender community, at every stage, they have an opportunity to interact with different members of society who are largely marginalized. This builds in them a very strong sense of compassion and, as I said, a sense of inclusion, because they begin to understand that even though these people might be challenged in one way, they're tremendously gifted in other ways. And so their sense of pity turns to a healthy respect for everybody around them. And I think this ability to see people as individuals who are contributing members of society and not just simply existing members of society helps you to change your perspective, gives you a great responsibility. As Mr. Tewari says, you feel that you have to do something for people around you. You're not just to exist and look after yourself alone.
Almosto, would you like to add to what Mr. Tewari and ma'am have just said about foundation and St. John's, foundation in politics and St. John's, the education there from?
Sir, I would just like to touch upon the one thing which Mr. Tewari mentioned about, and which Kavita ma'am also mentioned about, it's giving back to society. I think we were privileged to attend an institution like St. John's, and it is somewhere it's a responsibility also. Like I remember one of my quotes from a movie is, with great power comes great responsibility. And I would say in this case, if not power, then at least that privilege puts that responsibility upon us that we give back to society in whatever way we can, whether one holds public office or in your private, I would say, in private life, whatever you could do. But in whatever way, whether small or big, I think that is something that St. John's has taught us, is to have empathy for your fellow human beings and just help everyone in whatever way that you can. So I think that's a very important learning, which at least I got out of the school. And I think if all of us can incorporate that in whatever way in our lives, the world would be a better place to live in.
Right. Thank you. Moral compass, discipline, self-respect, respecting others. A lot of values St. John's has taught us. Thank you very much, Mrs. Das, Mr. Tewari, Almosto, all of you. Time to end this podcast right now, and see you, all of you, soon in a different role and a different scenario. Looking forward, and all the best to everyone. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie sir. Thank you, Kavita ma'am.
Bye-bye. Lovely meeting you all. God bless.
Thank you.